Welcome to the perplexing world of unsolved mysteries. In this video, we explore the depths of some of the most perplexing and intriguing cases that have stumped investigators for years. From mysterious disappearances and unexplained deaths to strange occurrences and eerie phenomena, we will attempt to shed light on these baffling enigmas. Despite the best efforts of detectives, these mysteries remain unsolved, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions and haunting uncertainty. Join us as we delve into the unknown and attempt to unravel the secrets that have eluded even the most experienced investigators. So buckle up and get ready for a journey into the fascinating world of unsolved mysteries.
On December 26, 1996, in Boulder, Colorado, a frantic call was made to police reporting 6-year-old JonBenét Ramsey as kidnapped from her family's home. Her mother, Patsy Ramsey, had discovered a bizarre ransom note demanding a hefty sum for the young girl's return. The only other people inside the house at the time were JonBenét's father, John, and her brother, Burke. Tragically, JonBenét's lifeless body was found later that same day in the basement of the Ramsey residence. She had duct tape over her mouth, a cord around her neck, and severe head injuries. The autopsy concluded her death was a homicide caused by asphyxiation and craniocerebral trauma. At the time, JonBenét was a rising child beauty queen star, having won numerous high-profile pageants, a fact that amplified national media attention on the shocking case. Nearly 3 decades later, the murder remains one of America's most gripping unsolved mysteries. However, recent developments have ignited fresh hope that JonBenét's killer may finally be brought to justice. The Boulder Police Department has revealed it is reviewing new recommendations stemming from a secret cold case investigation conducted over the past year. This independent team of elite experts was assembled to re-examine all existing evidence using modern investigative techniques and forensic testing methods unavailable in 1996. Their extensive efforts included digitizing over 21,000 tips, 1,000+ interviews, physical samples from 200 individuals, and a comprehensive analysis of DNA evidence, which remains a key focal point. The panel was comprised of seasoned professionals from the FBI, Colorado law enforcement agencies, DA's office, and other entities with specialized cold case experience. After their exhaustive year-long review, the team provided undisclosed new recommendations to Boulder investigators on how best to reinvigorate and potentially solve the Ramsey case. Police have stated they are committed to thoroughly pursuing these confidential recommendations. Chief Maris Harold expressed gratitude for the expert analysis, vowing, "We will continue to pursue all leads and explore technology advancements to identify JonBenét's killer." Officials have pledged to share any substantive updates with the public and Ramsey family as the revamped investigation unfolds. For those who vividly remember the national fixation on JonBenét's brutal slaying in 1996, this renewed focus provides a glimmer of hope. Perhaps modern forensic science and fresh investigative strategies can finally unravel the mystery that has consumed and eluded America for over a quarter-century. JonBenét's family, the city of Boulder, and an intrigued nation await further developments with bated breath.
As the shadows deepened and whispers of intrigue lingered in the air, one thing was certain: the next mystery was just around the corner, waiting to be unveiled.
The old grandfather clock in the musty hallway struck midnight, its resolute bongs splitting the suffocating silence like an axe through rotten wood. William Wallace started awake, his heart slamming against his ribcage as familiar tendrils of dread wrapped around his psyche. The nightmare had returned, as it did most nights without fail. An endless loop of horror seared into his subconscious. Julia's broken body lying before him, her once vibrant face now a mask of fear frozen in death. The crimson stains spreading out across the faded oriental rug like a malignant bloom. The metallic stench of her blood overwhelming his nostrils until he thought he might choke on it. The errand that had started out so innocuously at the chess club, the phony message that had lured him away just long enough for the killer to strike. With trembling hands, Wallace lit the lamp by the bed, its feeble glow doing little to pierce the gloom weighing down upon him. Try as he might, he could not escape the loop of images, each one searing deeper into his brain than the last. The frenzied beat of the blood-soaked killer's shoes on the hardwood as he fled. The locked door, both front and back, that should have kept intruders out. The look of blank confusion on the mustachioed constable's face as Wallace spun his unbelievable tale. Even now, it all seemed so implausible, so unhinging, like a sordid thriller penned by some novelist with a flair for the perverse. And yet he had lived it, the guilt and the paranoia surrounding him like a cursed, inescapable miasma. First, the scandalous guilty verdict, hanging about his neck like a sotted albatross as he awaited the executioner's cold embrace. Then the inconceivable reversal of the appeal and his name cleared, sent out into a world that still eyed him with contempt as the fiend who had beaten his wife to death. He ran a weary hand across his damp brow as the lurid details threatened to swallow his sanity yet again. The errand leading him to the non-existent address of 25 Menlove Gardens East. His timing, his lack of alibi, the circumstantial evidence all damning him. But that was the question that persisted, wasn't it? If he was the killer, why had he appeared so inexplicably neat when questioning the whereabouts of the fictional Mr. Qualtrough? No speck of Julia's blood marring his collar or cravat, not a single hair out of place. Unless he had found the time to meticulously clean himself before appeasing the neighbours' concerns. But the milk boy's insistence of speaking to Julia mere moments before he had left it made the logistics seem muddled, nearly impossible. Sweat beaded on Wallace's brow as the thoughts spiralled, the same vicious cycle repeating every night ad nauseum. He rose from the covers, his worn house-slippered feet shuffling to the desk where the hate box lay. The violin that had been his singular hobby before the tragedy. Back when his only purpose had been providing accompaniment to Julia's beautiful classical compositions on the pianoforte. Lovingly, he removed the instrument, cradling it like a newborn child as memories flooded back of his wife's radiant smile, her infectious laughter, all snuffed out in a tempest of unfathomable violence and malice. As the first pale hues of daybreak began painting the curtained windows, Wallace clearly heard the opening refrain of Beethoven's Kreutzer Sonata, Julia's favourite, wafting through the silence. A lump formed in his throat as he pulled the bow across the strings, the familiar melody wrapping around him with a loving embrace he had sorely missed these past years. A single tear traced its way down his weathered cheek. For in that fleeting moment of reverie, amid the persistent nightmare that was his lingering existence, he could almost convince himself that Julia's ethereal presence was still with him. But the notion would prove as ephemeral as the rays of dawn dissipating the night's shadows. The darkness, and all the sinister uncertainties it bred, would eventually return to haunt him anew. Who or what had truly taken his world from him on that wintry night in 1931? The uncertainty gnawed at his core like a metastasizing cancer. Perhaps it had been the disgruntled co-worker with penchant for pilfering company funds, the mechanic's tale of the bloodied glove in his glove box. Or could it have been something other? Some force not constrained by the tiresome laws of the mundane world. Some primordial maleficence slithering through the peripheries of the life William Wallace had known. The violin slipped from his hands, clattering lifelessly to the scuffed floorboards as a new series of sobs racked his body. For he could feel the conspiracy theories gathering their persuasive tendrils around his subconscious once more, calling to him from the oblique angles of shadow with their burgeoning mania. Outside, the first call of the morning paperboy's round echoed off the dreary buildings like a harbinger of doom. William Wallace knew there would be no more sleep on this night, or any night for that matter. Not while the mystery of his adored Julia's death went unanswered and fed on the pliant faculties of his unravelling mind. The nightmare was only just beginning.
As the shadows deepened and whispers of intrigue lingered in the air, one thing was certain: the next mystery was just around the corner, waiting to be unveiled.
It was a brisk December morning in 1948 when a horrifying discovery was made on the serene Somerton beach in Adelaide, Australia. A neatly dressed man, impeccable in his suit and tie with freshly polished shoes, lay motionless on the sand. His body was slumped against a seaside wall, head tilted slightly as if he had dozed off for an eternal slumber. But the vacant stare in his half-open eyes told a more sinister tale. This man was dead. An autopsy revealed no obvious signs of trauma or foul play. No poison coursed through his veins, no violence had been inflicted upon his body. Yet the mystery had only begun to unravel. Not a single item for identification could be found on the dapperly dressed stranger. No wallet, no papers, not even labels on his clothes. The tags had been meticulously removed, a seemingly deliberate act of concealing his identity. The case baffled authorities who dubbed him the Somerton Man. His fingerprints failed to yield a match in their records. Photographs plastered across newspapers yielded no leads, as no one could put a name to the face of this unfortunate soul. Just who was this man? 4 months later, a potential clue emerged. A tiny sewn pocket invisibly tucked into the man's trousers contained a scrap of paper, but it only deepened the enigma. The paper was torn from a rare book of poetry, the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, bearing the printed words Tamam Shud, Farsi for ended or finished. A manhunt ensued to find a matching book that could unlock this cipher. When all efforts failed, the unidentified man was laid to rest, though his body was embalmed and face cast in plaster, preserving his features should the truth ever come to light. 8 months on, a man brought forward a bizarre lead. He claimed to have found a copy of the Rubaiyat in the rear floor area of his car, which he had parked near Somerton Beach around the same time. The torn page matched the scrap in the dead man's pocket, but there were more mysteries entangled between the book's pages, a cryptic code and a phone number. The number led to a woman named Jo Thompson, who lived just miles away. In a strange twist, she became erratic when shown the plaster bust, feigning illness before denying any knowledge of the man. All she admitted was having gifted that very book to a man named Alfred Boxall. But Boxall was alive and had his copy fully intact. Decades later, the Somerton Man's identity and coded messages remain one of Australia's most inscrutable mysteries. Rumors have swirled of him being a Soviet spy or US tracker pursued by ruthless forces. But the truth likely went to the grave with this dapper non-entity from the beach that summer's day in 1948, taking with it the final chapter of his enigmatic story.
As the shadows deepened and whispers of intrigue lingered in the air, one thing was certain: the next mystery was just around the corner, waiting to be unveiled.
On a fateful day in November 1971, the aviation world witnessed one of the most perplexing and daring hijackings in history. A man, who became known as D.B. Cooper, boarded Northwest Airlines Flight 305 from Portland to Seattle, carrying a mysterious briefcase and a brown paper bag. Cooper, described as a well-dressed businessman in his mid-40s, seemed unremarkable at first glance. However, once the flight was airborne, he handed a note to a flight attendant, revealing his true intentions. He had a bomb and a set of audacious demands. The note, now etched in aviation lore, demanded $200,000 in cash, exclusively in $20 bills, 2 front parachutes, and 2 back parachutes. Cooper also insisted on a fuel truck ready for refueling upon landing, threatening to do the job if his demands were not met. In a tense standoff, the FBI scrambled to assemble the ransom money from Seattle area banks, while local police obtained the requested parachutes from a skydiving school. With his demands fulfilled, Cooper allowed the passengers and some crew members to disembark, keeping the remaining crew on board. As the hijacked aircraft took off again, heading for Mexico City at a low altitude, Cooper donned a pair of dark, wraparound sunglasses, an iconic detail that would become forever etched in the collective memory of the case. Somewhere between Seattle and Reno, Nevada, in the dead of night, D.B. Cooper accomplished the unthinkable. He jumped from the rear door of the aircraft, parachutes and ransom money in hand, disappearing into the darkness. Despite an extensive manhunt and decades of investigation by the FBI, the enigmatic hijacker's true identity and fate remained a mystery. No trace of Cooper was ever found, and the case grew into one of the most baffling unsolved crimes in United States history. Numerous theories and potential suspects have surfaced over the years, but none have provided definitive answers. The D.B. Cooper hijacking stands as a testament to the audacity of one man and the enduring power of a well-executed heist, leaving an indelible mark on the annals of aviation and criminal investigations.
As the shadows deepened and whispers of intrigue lingered in the air, one thing was certain: the next mystery was just around the corner, waiting to be unveiled.
On a September day in 1920, during the bustling lunch hour on Wall Street, an unassuming man driving a horse-drawn wagon made his way through the crowds. He stopped the wagon in front of the U.S. Assay Office, across from the famous J.P. Morgan building. After bringing the old horse to a halt, the driver calmly disembarked and disappeared into the masses. Mere minutes later, a thunderous explosion ripped through the financial district as the wagon detonated in a devastating hail of shrapnel. The blast left a staggering toll: over 30 people killed instantly and 300 more injured. The grisly aftermath unfolded as more victims succumbed to their wounds throughout the day. Initially viewed as a tragic accident, it soon became clear this was an intentional act of terror. As night fell, maintenance crews cleared the wreckage, inadvertently destroying potential evidence that could identify the perpetrators. By the next morning, Wall Street had already resumed business operations as if nothing had occurred. Conspiracy theories swirled, but law enforcement agencies, the New York Police and Fire Departments, the Bureau of Investigation, precursor to the FBI, and the U.S. Secret Service, diligently sought the truth. Hundreds of witnesses were interviewed, yet recollections of the driver and wagon proved vague and unhelpful. The NYPD reconstructed the bomb and fuse mechanism, but debates raged about the explosive materials used. The most promising lead actually preceded the attack. A mailman discovered 4 crudely printed flyers from a group calling itself the American Anarchist Fighters, demanding freedom for political prisoners. The letters resembled ones from Italian anarchist bombing campaigns the previous year. The Bureau traced the flyers' printing across the East Coast to no avail. Based on similar attacks over the previous decade, investigators initially suspected followers of Italian anarchist Luigi Galleani. However, without concrete evidence tying Galleani's adherence to the bombing, and with the revolutionary having already fled the country, the case stalled. For 3 years, leads went cold and trails turned into dead ends. Ultimately, the Wall Street bombers' identities remained a mystery. The 1920 Wall Street bombing represented one of the first major terrorist attacks on U.S. soil. While never officially attributed to a specific group, circumstantial evidence suggests involvement by anarchists and revolutionaries, influenced by figures like Luigi Galleani. The unsolved case prompted the Bureau of Investigation to establish a more robust anti-terrorist capability. It also fueled concerns over radicals and ideological extremists that culminated in the notorious Palmer raids just months after the bombing. Though the perpetrators escaped justice, this deadly event foreshadowed the 20th century threat of indiscriminate violence targeting civilians for political aims.
As the shadows deepened and whispers of intrigue lingered in the air, one thing was certain: the next mystery was just around the corner, waiting to be unveiled.
The Valley of King, 1922. The scorching Egyptian sun beat down on the sandy valley as Howard Carter's excavation team resumed their search. For years they had been hunting for ancient tombs, their efforts interrupted by the Great War. Carter's wealthy patron, Lord Carnarvon, was growing weary of funding this seemingly fruitless endeavour. Failure again in 1921 nearly saw the plug pulled. But somehow Carter convinced Carnarvon to bankroll one final season. On November 4th, a young water boy stumbled upon a peculiar stone. Moving it aside, Carter's eyes widened as a stone staircase emerged from the rubble. Could it be? After decades of futility, had he finally uncovered what he sought? Digging carefully, Carter soon confirmed his wildest dreams, the remarkably intact tomb of King Tutankhamun. For 3 painstaking weeks, the team burrowed through the underground passages until they reached the sealed burial chamber door. As Carnarvon looked on with bated breath, Carter pried open the portal, catching his first glimpse of glittering treasures within. Yes, wonderful things, he famously uttered about the gold, statues, and mummified animals that no soul had laid eyes upon in over 3,000 years. But this monumental discovery may have come at a grave cost, literally. Soon after breaching the tomb, outlandish rumours of an ancient curse began to swirl. Some claimed an ominous inscription loomed above that entrance, though Carter dismissed such hogwash. Still, a series of bizarre incidents and untimely deaths amongst the expedition seemed to lend credence to the legend of the Pharaohs' curse. First was Carnarvon himself, killed by an infected mosquito bite just months after opening the tomb. Allegedly, at the exact moment he perished, Cairo went dark from a freak power outage, while his dog howled once before dropping dead back in England. The coincidence seemed too eerie, especially when an autopsy revealed a scar on Tutankhamun's cheek in the same spot Carnarvon had been bitten. More deaths followed of those connected to the discovery, including Carnarvon's relatives. Even the famed Arthur Conan Doyle attributed them to awakened elementals or supernatural beings from the disturbed tomb. The most chilling occurrence involved Carter's beloved canary upon sending for the bird. His messenger arrived to find a live cobra, sacred symbol of Pharaohs, with the poor creature's corpse dangling from its jaws. A jackal haunting the camp, reminiscent of Anubis, the ancient deity of the dead, did little to assuage rising fears. Yet Carter stoically pressed on, branded the curse nonsense. Some say he had forged a supernatural pact of his own, as various relics from Tutankhamun's tomb were later discovered stashed in Carter's home, including a protective amulet against evil forces. While Carter survived another 16 years after his historic find, others in the expedition crew perished quickly, like AC. Mace and Carter's own secretary met with an untimely demise within 2 years, the latter murdered under shady circumstances. Had the irreverent act of disturbing the king's rest truly unleashed an ancient wrath? Or was it merely an incredible string of misfortunes and tragic coincidences? In the end, perhaps Carter did cheat death by appeasing the boy king with illicit offerings. One could imagine the two explorers, the modern and the ancient, sharing spectral laughter in the afterlife at having outsmarted the fabled curse.
As the shadows deepened and whispers of intrigue lingered in the air, one thing was certain: the next mystery was just around the corner, waiting to be unveiled.
In the shrouded alleyways of London's East End in 1888, a malevolent presence stalked the night, sowing terror throughout the impoverished Whitechapel district. This was the hunting ground of Jack the Ripper, perhaps the most infamous serial killer in history. Though only 5 victims were definitively linked to his grisly canonical murders, some theorists estimate his real death toll may have reached 11 victims or more. His crimes were characterized by unspeakable mutilation and disembowelment of prostitutes who haunted those fog-bound streets of the slums in a desperate bid for survival. From August 7th to September 10th, 1888, the killer's bloody spree paralyzed Whitechapel with fear as the bodies of Mary Ann Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Eddowes and Mary Jane Kelly were discovered brutally slain. Letters allegedly penned by the fiend and sent to authorities mocked the hapless police, glorifying in the lurid details of the crimes. It was the notorious From Hell letter that coined the spine-chilling nickname Jack the Ripper, by which the unknown killer became globally infamous. For over a century, Jack the Ripper's true identity remained one of crime's most baffling cold cases, despite countless suspects and theories ranging from Königsmörder to royalty. That all changed with explosive DNA evidence recently unveiled in the peer-reviewed Journal of Forensic Sciences. Through genetic analysis of a shawl recovered from the grisly crime scene near Catherine Eddowes, the Ripper's 4th victim, scientists say they have finally unmasked London's mythical bogeyman, Aaron Kosminski, a 23-year-old Polish immigrant barber and resident of Whitechapel who was a prime police suspect even in 1888. Researchers extracted tantalizing traces of mitochondrial DNA from shawl stains believed to be the killer's semen and compared it to modern samples from living descendants of both Eddowes and Kosminski. The genetic fingerprints aligned with a startling degree of certainty, identifying Kosminski as the likely source of the biological evidence left behind. These characteristics are surely not unique. The scientists admit of the DNA's indications the killer had brown hair and brown eyes, matching witness descriptions of a potential suspect near the Stride murder scene. But their compelling findings restart the 130-year-old murder mystery with a prime suspect in the crosshairs. Not everyone is convinced this finally closes the Ripper case, however. Skeptics argue the mitochondrial DNA evidence is far from conclusive since it can't necessarily prove Kosminski's guilt beyond reasonable doubt. Privacy issues also prevented the full genetic sequences from being published, undermining the scientific rigor of the analysis. Furthermore, doubts linger over whether the shawl definitively links back to the horrific Whitechapel crime scenes or could have been contaminated over the many decades since the murders. Past attempts to use cutting-edge forensic science to catch the Ripper, such as efforts by author Patricia Cornwell, have similarly sparked controversy over the accuracy of evidence analysis. While the latest investigation sheds dramatic new light on the Victorian slaughter that upended the richest city on Earth, history's most haunting whodunit may never be fully solved, to the unanimous satisfaction of Ripper historians, scientists, and amateur sleuths. The vapor-shrouded identity of Jack the Ripper continues to stalk a new age of forensic inquiry more than a century later. His malign mystique and unanswered question of motive appear destined to endure in the clutches of the night once more.
As the shadows deepened and whispers of intrigue lingered in the air, one thing was certain: the next mystery was just around the corner, waiting to be unveiled.
In the late 1960s and early 1970s, the San Francisco Bay Area was gripped by fear as a serial killer who became infamously known as the Zodiac Killer unleashed a horrifying spree of murders and taunting letters. This enigmatic predator claimed to have killed at least 37 people, though authorities could only confirm 5 confirmed victims. The Zodiac's reign of terror began on December 20th, 1968, when 17-year-old David Faraday and 16-year-old Betty Lou Jensen were shot dead while sitting in a parked car on Lake Herman Road in the city of Vallejo. By the time police arrived, Betty was already deceased, while David succumbed to his injuries on the way to the hospital. This grisly double homicide marked the Zodiac's inaugural strike. Only 7 months later, on July 4th, 1969, the killer struck again at the Blue Rock Springs Park, mere minutes from the previous crime scene. This time, the victims were 22-year-old Darlene Ferrin and 19-year-old Michael Mageau, who were ambushed in a parked car by the Zodiac brandishing a flashlight. While Ferrin lost her life, Mageau miraculously survived, albeit with critical injuries. His description of the assailant, a young, stocky white male with curly light brown hair and a large face, would become crucial in the investigation. Within an hour of the Blue Rock Springs attack, police received a chilling phone call from someone claiming responsibility for both the Lake Herman Road and Blue Rock Springs murders. The caller's identity remained unknown, but his haunting words marked the beginning of the Zodiac's psychological warfare against authorities and the public. On August 1st, 1969, the San Francisco Chronicle, San Francisco Examiner, and Vallejo Herald newspapers each received handwritten letters from the self-proclaimed killer. These letters contained specific details about the murders, proving the writer's authenticity. Signed with a distinctive cross-circle symbol that would become the Zodiac's calling card, the letters also contained 3 cryptic codes that the killer demanded be published, threatening further bloodshed if his demands were not met. The codes were eventually cracked on August 8th by a couple in Salinas, California, revealing the Zodiac's chilling words: "I like killing because it is so much fun. It is more fun than killing wild game in the forest because man is the most dangerous animal of all to kill. Something gives me the most thrilling experience. It is even better than getting your rocks off with a girl. The best part of it is that when I die, I will be reborn in paradise, and those I have killed will become my slaves. I will not give you my name because you will slow down or stop my collecting of slaves for the afterlife." As the Zodiac's body count grew, his taunting letters continued, sowing fear and unrest throughout Northern California. In his final communication on January 29, 1974, he ominously declared a new score, Me 37 SFPD 0, hinting at a staggering number of potential victims beyond the confirmed cases. Despite extensive investigations and countless leads, the true identity of the Zodiac Killer remains one of America's most baffling unsolved mysteries. His cunning, depravity, and obsession with cryptograms and codes have made him an enduring figure of fascination and dread in the annals of serial killer lore.
As As the shadows deepened and whispers of intrigue lingered in the air, one thing was certain: the next mystery was just around the corner, waiting to be unveiled.
On a fateful day in September 1982, the Chicago area was rocked by a series of shocking deaths that would forever change the way medications are packaged and consumed. 7 unsuspecting individuals, including 12-year-old Mary Kellerman, collapsed and died shortly after ingesting poisoned Tylenol pills laced with lethal doses of potassium cyanide. The victims were diverse in age and background. 27-year-old Mary Reiner, 31-year-old Mary McFarland, 35-year-old Paula Prince, 27-year-old Adam Janis, 25-year-old Stanley Janis, and 19-year-old Teresa Janis. The Janis family was particularly devastated, with Adam dying at the hospital, and Stanley and his wife Teresa succumbing to the poison after taking Tylenol to cope with their grief, resulting in 3 deaths in the same family on the same tragic day. As the bodies piled up, investigators like Cook County's Nick Pichos and Deputy Medical Examiner Edmund Donahue began connecting the dots. They noticed a striking similarity between the Tylenol bottles, a control number, MC2880. Moreover, the bottles emitted a distinct almond-like odor, a telltale sign of cyanide poisoning. Blood tests confirmed the victims had ingested doses 100 to 1,000 times the lethal amount. In a stunning revelation, Donahue informed Johnson & Johnson, Tylenol's parent company, that their product had been intentionally tampered with and laced with potassium cyanide. The manufacturer swiftly issued a nationwide recall of over 31 million bottles, a move that cost them over $100 million, but potentially saved countless lives. The Tylenol poisonings didn't end there, however. Copycats emerged across the United States, prompting the introduction of tamper-resistant packaging and safety seals that have become standard practice today. Despite extensive investigations and a $100,000 reward offered by Johnson & Johnson, the perpetrator behind this heinous act remained elusive, and the case went cold. Decades later, in the late 2000s, the FBI's prime suspect emerged: James Lewis, a former employee of a firm contracted by the parent company. Special Agent Roy Lane, who had dedicated over 26 years to the FBI, was coaxed out of retirement to lead an undercover operation aimed at finally cracking the Tylenol Murders case. Lane, now 75, expressed a bittersweet sentiment upon learning of Lewis's recent death at the age of 76 in Cambridge, Massachusetts. James Lewis' death ends a lifetime of cruelty to others and the compulsive need for revenge, Lane told The Independent. However, it also marked an unsatisfying end to the pursuit of justice he had dedicated half his life to. The Tylenol poisonings of 1982 remain one of the most chilling and perplexing unsolved crimes in American history. While the prime suspect has passed away, the mystery endures, serving as a grim reminder of the vulnerability of consumer products and the lengths to which some will go to inflict harm on innocent lives.
As the shadows deepened and whispers of intrigue lingered in the air, one thing was certain: the next mystery was just around the corner, waiting to be unveiled.
The mysterious tale of the Mary Celeste continues to captivate minds and fuel imaginations, even over a century after its fateful voyage. On December 4th, 1872, this British-American ship was discovered adrift and deserted in the vast expanse of the Atlantic Ocean. What perplexed investigators was the ship's remarkable condition: seaworthy, cargo intact, but devoid of its crew. The only notable absence was a lifeboat, suggesting a deliberate and orderly evacuation. Yet the fate of those aboard, including Captain Benjamin Briggs, his family, and the 7 crew members, remains an enigma, as no communication or trace of them has ever been found. The Mary Celeste embarked on its journey from New York to Genoa, Italy in November 1872, under the command of Captain Briggs. On board were his wife, their 2-year-old daughter, and a crew prepared for a 6-month voyage. The ship was equipped not only for practicality, but also boasted luxurious amenities, such as a sewing machine and an upright piano, adding to the mystery of its abandonment. Historians and speculators alike have grappled with the puzzle of why a perfectly seaworthy vessel would be forsaken. Various theories have emerged over the years, from mutiny to pirate attacks, even fantastical notions involving sea monsters. Yet no conclusive evidence has ever surfaced to support any particular hypothesis. One particularly dramatic theory, put forth by Mr. Solly Flood, proposed that a violent mutiny occurred on board, resulting in the murder of Captain Briggs and his family. This theory relied on scant and circumstantial evidence, such as a bloody sword and alleged intentional damage to the ship's bow. However, closer examination suggests that these supposed clues may have been misinterpreted or staged by the salvage crew. The bloody sword likely was nothing more than a rusty or stained blade, while the damage to the bows could have been caused by routine maritime factors. In the absence of concrete evidence of violence or the remains of the captain's party, the most plausible explanation remains that some unforeseen emergency prompted the crew to abandon ship. While Mr. Solly Flood's theory adds a dramatic flair to the tale, it lacks substantial support from the available facts. The true fate of the Mary Celeste continues to elude us, wrapped in the shroud of maritime mystery that has fascinated generations. Despite over a century of speculation, the truth behind the abandoned ghost ship remains tantalizingly out of reach.
Thank you for joining us on this exploration of the unexplained. We hope these mysteries have sparked your curiosity and encouraged you to delve deeper into the unknown. Until next time, stay curious, stay vigilant, and never stop seeking the truth.